Happy New Year, everybody. Demonic Angel. And I'm off to start the new year with basically a side video to the demon, the goetic demon Murmur. And that is the demon that I'm going to do my outdoor sigil video for. So Murmur is a demon of philosophy, and he's also associated with necromancy. So it's essentially he is associated with the philosophies of the dead. And murmur in Latin means whisper or noise, and I find that really interesting that, you know, the demon of philosophy would be associated with something noise, and in a large way that's how I mention how my interactions with goetic demons, I perceive them as hearing them sing or hum, and so, you know, that's really interesting, matches up, I guess, with personal experience. So in that kind of spirit, I thought, well, you know what, I really like to start doing some philosophy and yeah, really bring some thelema stuff, you know, here, topics. But it's really, you know, bringing philosophy to life. Now, you know, most of these great philosophers, they're deceased. And what we can do with connecting with them, we read their works and it comes alive for us. It's literally, you know, learning secrets from dead people. I believe it's Machiavelli, and he has a quote, I'm sure I'll find it posted in the link for y'all, but that when he would, and he's the one who wrote The Prince, and it's kind of a political thing. A lot of people said it sounds very evil and uncaring. However, that's not what he wanted, or, you know, like his ideal, like the way that he wanted people to behave. His book is about the way that people will behave when we look at, you know, politicians, kings, right? And then we look at the masses. How does that type of consciousness interact? So it's more interesting, like in a psychological way rather than a moral way, because then you can kind of predict things in that viewpoint rather than, you know, more morality. But he said when he would read books of ancient Greek philosophers, you know, he loved to stay up at night by candlelight, of course, and read. And he said, it's just like it's like they're there with me. These philosophers, these thinkers, it just comes alive. And you know, and it's for something very similar to what I'm saying, his quote. And you know, I'm not alone. And it's very, I guess not everybody sees it that way, but it really is like that. It's like when you are, you know, you're learning something, it's just that, it's very deep. But obviously, you know, you could also apply this to necromancy. And the idea behind that, of course, is when you interact with the dead, you summon them or conjure them, and they're around you. Well, you're going to do something for them. Listen to their problems, help them with their feelings, whatever applies to that situation. And in return, when you open yourself to that, then you get a little piece of that person, their life, what they found meaningful in life. What did they suffer? What made them happiest? What made them suffer the most? And that's the real valuable part. That is the philosophy associated with necromancy, that you really gain a knowledge from working with dead people. And I think that it's not so much looked at that way. I think people are more fascinated with conjuring the dead for like secrets and fortune telling. But there's also that profound personal connection that that happens for me. I mean, example would be, I've been working with this deceased gentleman, and he's been around me for a few months now, and I was finally able to at night come out and do a little moving on ceremony for him. Like, he knew he was dead, but just a lot of new births in his family happening, and his sister reaching out for him, and he feels that pain. That's that thing that, that they sense that, and that's what he was sensing. So I was able to, basically chat with him and explain that he's choosing ascension. And so in doing that, though, I got to talk, basically make a friend, if you will, and learn a lot. So, and from all these things I've done, when I was younger and all the things I went through, I used to be, it blocked my psychic abilities for a period of time. Angry. I would see things as being outside of myself constantly. Like, I'd get stuff done today if it wasn't for all this other shit that's happening, right? And so, I mean, of course, that still is a legitimate complaint sometimes, but to always see it that way, that's a problem. Or that, the Mormons I grew up with, they make me angry, this and that, and who really suffered from that, was me. But when I got sober, healed, and opened up to this again, it really, I've really opened up to be, learning from people of all perspectives, and it's really enriched my life. And I'm not an angry person anymore, because I personally know how much just being angry really limits your perspective, and that's pretty much that. But I briefly will talk about one of the things I really enjoy is Nietzsche. Now, you can imagine I enjoy Nietzsche because of, he is the philosopher most famous for saying God is dead. But, of course, people think that means that he hates God and religion, but it really means more like God is dead because we're just a consumer society, because, well, I mean, he died in 1900, but because we don't take the time to get to know one another anymore, because we're killing nature. That is how God is dead. I think Nietzsche would probably understand, or I'm hoping I understand him, in the sense of God being consciousness. So consciousness in its highest form is dead because we as a collective unconsciousness have killed it, and that's what that means. It's not such a cheap surface level thing as understood by pop culture. But I've read all of Nietzsche's works, Twilight of the Idols, things like that, and of course when he's very critical of Christianity. And that, I really am critical of organized religion, so there's a lot, if you're kind of recovering or leaving religion, there's a lot in there for you. I think it can help you find some meaning in any of Nietzsche's works. However, one of the coolest things that he talks about that resonates with me is, I think his whole philosophy, as I saved here on my computer, it's of course Nietzsche's German, so any of my German friends could probably help pronunciate all this stuff, but Übermensch, and it's like Nietzsche's idea of life, and it's one of those questions, right, that I kind of look at Nietzsche and Buddhism, and you know, like when I look at Buddhism, and I think, well, you know, you want to ascend and not, you know, you don't have to reincarnate anymore. You know, you become who you're really supposed to be. What then? Is a person ever really going to not want to be a subjective consciousness, or is that just, you know, you just want to help people on the astral plane and whatever? But that's one of the very few points with Buddhism that I kind of disagree on, I guess, if you will, because I really think that the point is not to just evolve and ascend so that you could be some kind of ascended master or great consciousness. That I think that this whole subjective experience is very, not just important, but it's very vital. Now, that kind of is one of those questions, like, is there ever a man, you know, Nietzsche looks at this like, is there ever a person who, let's say this, right? A person who's really rich and they got their yacht and their castle and whatever, and they don't have to go to work, and people cook for them and do all their shit, and then they have their life, right? They have their perfect life that we all kind of imagine in their head. Is that man content? No. I mean, you could even say, let's say that man is content for that moment, and then to somebody else it could be the birth of their child, okay? Or, you know, a job promotion. That is that moment of contentment that you experience, but you could never live that forever. You don't own it. You can't hold on to it, because that's not what it means to be not only just human, but to, you know, for this experience. There's no satisfaction there's no lasting satisfaction. There's just the journey. And I believe that we have a hunger for the journey that is, you know, very primal. I think angels and demons kind of understand this a little bit better than us, because they're very connected with that. But it's not a hunger that will ever be quenched by its nature, by what it means. You know, it's not like, even if in all these other forms, like you just choose to be on the astral plane, there's still, the astral plane is still affected by by karma, by the cycles. So this hunger never ends, and you will not, you can't have that. You can't belong, you can't own happiness. But the idea, of course, is that so, like, let's say that you collect toy cars, right? And it makes you happy, because, like, that's your thing. It's not the collecting of cars in itself that makes you happy, right? It's like the process, the interest, the drive, right? You like these little cars, these little model cars, because you know about them. Maybe you really liked them as a child, and you know you have this next car in mind that you want to get, and now it's available on eBay and you can get it, right? It's that whole pursuit. That's the drive. It's not, hey, once you get it, now you're completely satisfied. You have all these cars and you can be happy. You're doing it for that vital part of the journey. That's where the real happiness comes from. The real happiness comes from the journey, comes from that, and then that leads to these moments that we experience. Okay, these that I mentioned that we could all kind of relate to: job, birth of a child, becoming rich, becoming healthy after, you know, and you But like leading up to that, right? You have bad health, now you have good health, so you can appreciate it. I'm indulging in my hobby in philosophy and the paranormal because it interests me, because it drives me, it gets me to question things, and that's the real rush, the real drive. You know that there is that whole philosophy that I think in pop culture, like the goal is to be happy. It is not to be happy, because that's not what it means to be human. And this is all some Nietzsche stuff. And psychology really mostly agrees with what Nietzsche says, that one of the things is that you're looking at the paradox of happiness, which is that, let's say you wanted to lead a hedonistic lifestyle, sex, drugs, rock and roll kind of a thing. That's not likely to produce a lot of pleasure. And, of course it's going to lead to addiction. So the things that are easy, the things that and it kind of goes deeper than that, like, if you anytime you choose to do something like that, and I mean, for example, it's like, instead of suffering from being tired, you choose to drink caffeine, and then you think you're taking control, but now you're chemically addicted to caffeine. So what's going to happen is you're not going to feel very good if you don't get that, and it's not really the physical pain so much, but it's the psychological stuff, right? Like, your brain's like, hey, you don't want to give me my cup of coffee? I'll fucking make you depressed. And it creates that, because it's all based on these chemicals, knowing that, hey, if you seek this out, I'll relieve you, because we have to be aware of how chemical we are. Now, I love coffee, and I'm sure I'm addicted to it, but I do go off of it sometimes. I take breaks, because I'm very aware of how beneficial that is, and that just because it's socially acceptable doesn't make it any less profound. But it's just those kinds of plays that we kind of choose. So yeah, anytime we just choose to do something that negates the suffering, we don't usually tend to get a lot out of it. And it's very true. Any kind of excess is going to lead to addiction, and it's simply not pleasurable. There isn't reward in that. But that the more you suffer, the more you choose to suffer, meaning find the meaning. Like any great scientist is gonna, they have an idea and they're gonna work on it. It's gonna take months, and that is suffering, okay, in itself, because you have to put this time and effort and build this. That is the meaning of, in other words, these build-up moments, the process. This is the meaning of life, and it's as you live and you go through these experiences of seeing things as kind of coming from within yourself, experiencing tragedy, experiencing bad health, whatever, and you take your own meaning. You can paint that with your mind and put that meaning to yourself. That is what the meaning of life is for you to have that experience and understand, because there really is no better teacher than experience. And when we choose to do things that are hard, that are, I also would say, that take a long time, that's the good reward. That's the meaning. So there is not there's not happiness. There's not a man or a woman who is always happy. Just like we're not meant to be always young. We're not going to be, I don't own being in my 30s. I will age, you know, my cartilage in my nose and my ears will grow and my face will sag, and I'm gonna get old, and that's okay. You know, it's part of that moment in time, that experience. And that really helped me, because when I was kind of looking at different philosophies, honestly thinking about aging and such, it wasn't so easy to swallow, kind of coming out of Christianity and things like that. But when I learned about the story of Buddha, and he didn't understand that people were dying because he was locked away, and he had to personally experience it, and see it, experience it, then and that we all have, this is what we are all going to go through, is because that is the meaning, then that's what I really am all about. And it's brought me a lot of comfort, just seeing things as not something that I don't own. I can't control. I can't take an event such as a good Christmas and have it forever. It's just part of my journey. I mean, it helps the bad times, but in a way it also helps me hold on to the good times a little bit longer, because I realize how really special and fortunate and how exhilarating it is to just be alive and having such a said good moment. But that that is kind of that whole idea. But anyway, those are some of the things that I hope Nietzsche would enjoy my thoughts on his philosophy's works. But I'd like to get into some philosophy, and now that I've been talking about murmur, and the next video will be my sigil video. So I hope you guys stay tuned and you can enjoy some philosophy with me. I'll put a couple links on Nietzsche below, just in case maybe you've never heard of or read his works. I'll talk to you guys later.